Hey guys, how are you doing? So I kind of have a longer drive today. I don't know if I'll talk the whole time because I'm sorry, my sinuses just never end nowadays. But I wanted to talk today about the intention of God and how nobody ever goes against God's intention ever. And I think about stuff really deeply, obviously, all the time. And I was just thinking about all the times that in my life that I, was sin conscious and was thinking about, well, I'm sinning or I'm doing this or I'm going against God's will. And I was always afraid, like in my former ignorant days, like, well, what if I lost my salvation? What if I didn't make God happy? Oh my God, like what if I don't really believe
turn right
the right
to merge
thing?
onto E470 South.
Whatever, like and the fact is, like, this is what's so amazing about Christians, that they just can't see this. Like, I don't understand why. Like, I understand why, because God blinds them for his purposes right now. But it's, you go back to the story of Joseph and how Joseph, sorry, it's so bright, as you can see. Joseph was sold by his brothers and lied about, and basically God turned it around for good. I mean, not just here's the thing though. What Christians will say is, well, God turned the situation around for good. But that wasn't what God's intention originally was. Of course it freaking was.
For about 41 miles, continue straight.
You look at Pharaoh. It says, I have raised you up to show my power in you. The very reason of Pharaoh was to do that. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, there is no, well, God went on to plan B because plan A failed because man didn't do X, Y, Z. Man didn't obey God perfectly like he should have. Like, I mean, I've even heard so many Christians say that, like, we would have never had to go through this if Adam would have never eaten the fruit out of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And I remind them that God was the one that put the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the garden. God was the one that illuminated it to them. Do you see what I'm saying? So all God had to do was give a thou shalt not law to activate that curious nature in them, I believe, to cause them to eat from the tree, because that was what his intention was. His intention was always that we had an experience of evil, and that we go through this wicked eon, which is about 6,000 years, I believe, total, until, like, that's the number of man, and total until we go into the millennial reign, the fourth eon, and then we go into the fifth eon, which is when God's going to reconcile all, like the eighth day, right? So I was just thinking about all the times in my life where I was so self-condemned. And I was reading I can't remember where I was reading yesterday. It was Paul talking about how so-and-so was self-condemned, and I was like, God dang, like that, because I falsely thought God's will and God's intention were the same thing. But he's causing people to go against his will all the time. And I know Christians just can't handle that. They're like, there's no way God tempts someone to sin. And like, the thing is, he doesn't have to even directly tempt you to sin. He just has to put you in a situation, because he causes all things. He has to put you in a situation where you have to make a decision, and you're going to make that decision to potentially go against his will. So, but his will is not his intention. His intention, nobody goes against his intention. Like, you look at the wars that have started over the centuries and all these things. I've been watching a lot of documentaries on World War II and Mr. H's rise to power, and how he literally came from nothing and was sleeping on park benches and didn't have a hope in the world, and then he becomes the world's most powerful person for a short amount of time. But my whole point is, like, God put every situation in Mr. H's like caused him to not be accepted into art school, caused him to, have such a hard life, and then caused him to go to that, I can't remember what it was, but it was the group that he was a part of, that basically, where he got propagandized and all this kind of stuff. And he saw, World War I was devastating, and he saw that, and he was very much a nationalist and wanted the country to be better again. And I mean, that's just one person out of so many different people, but I'm just saying, because he's like one of the most famous people in history, right? But whatever, and I know people will say, well, that's just so horrible what he did. Yeah, it is horrible, but it was never against God's intention. That was always God's intention. And God would use that situation, for example. Now, there's a lot of stuff with modern day Israel that I don't think is like the actual people, okay? But I won't go into that today. But I just want to say, like, all that stuff had to happen to get to where we are today, and to get to the rise of the American empire, for example. If you want to talk about like empires in the world, because the United States empire would be the last empire. It would be the empire that crushes the whole earth. And like, if Napoleon hadn't sold the land back in the day, you know what I'm saying? Like, all these things have culminated. And for anyone to say that God is not in total 100% control, and not only that, no one goes against his intention ever, is foolish. It's just, you're blind and you're a fool if you think that. And you'll also have a very hard life, because 9 times out of 10, well, 10 times out of 10, people that believe that way, that believe that they have, the upper hand in their life, and they have a free will, and which is impossible for God to have a free will and man to have a free will, by the way. That makes note that it's not even in science, by the way, can they prove now that man has a complete free will. Because we're all subject to our own, like, cause and effect. There's cause and effect. Like you go out, you have influence to your choices. Like, if I was born, for example, Scott has talked about this, and I agree. If I was born in Saudi Arabia, I wouldn't even have the same choices that I have as an American woman in Colorado or Oklahoma, where I'm originally from. Do you see what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have even been exposed to certain things, to make certain choices. I wouldn't have been able to go into the U.S. military. I wouldn't have probably wanted to go into the U.S. military. All these choices that I've made have been influenced by God and his intention. I've never, ever gone against his intention, even if I've gone against his verbalized will, meaning like, thou shalt not murder, and like the 10 Commandments and things like this. But my point is, even the 10 Commandments, God, it says that the law was given to increase the transgression, that the law was given to increase sin, basically, because God knew that's all he had to do. All he had to do was give a thou shalt not law, and it shuts up your faith. That's what it does to man, and it actually increases sin. It definitely causes self-righteousness, and then you're going to definitely fall, and then all can be saved, right? It's like, it's a one and done. I mean, that's all God had to do. And these people they cannot understand this. They can't ever let God be responsible for evil, like Isaiah talks about. I think it's Isaiah 45 something. It says, I, the Lord, create evil. I do all these things. No one delivers out of my hand. I form light, I form darkness. They'll go in there and they'll change the words, and they'll be like, what means chaos? Yeah, well, no, it doesn't actually. In the original Greek, in the original Hebrew, it's evil. But the point is, God is the only one that can take evil and turn it around for good. And he uses evil all the time to turn around for good. He created the adversary to be a chaos to us, because he needed the adversary for a time. Paul back in the day, handed the man over to Satan for the destruction of the flesh, so his soul might be saved on the day of the Lord. The devil has a very important purpose. I don't really bother with the devil anymore. I used to like rebuke the devil and all this stuff, and like, the more I come into a knowledge of the truth, I'm like, God, the devil can only do what God allows him to do. And if God allows him, God is causing the devil to do something to me, then I need to learn some kind of lesson, or there's something that I still haven't learned contrast about, or something like that. But I don't obsess about the devil or the demons or all this kind of stuff. Now, I feel bad I did have a situation when I was younger. Let me tell you about my salvation experience, okay? I was a witch. I was literally practicing witchcraft. I was like messing with Ouija boards. I was dealing with voodoo and all these kinds of things. And guess what? God brought me into that. Because why? Because he was going to show his power by delivering me from it. Do you see what I mean? And if I would have never gone into it, he would have never been able, like, he would never have shown his power by showing up and saying, this is basically just putting my impression in me that this is dumb, this is evil, stop doing it. Like, this is not for you. You know what I mean? This is not the true power. Like, I'm the true power. And it was never like a make this decision for me. It was nothing like that. It was just, I knew he was the Christ. I knew he was the Son of God. I knew he was the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through him. I just knew that. I didn't need a preacher, telling me to do a sinner's prayer and do all this stuff. I didn't need any of that, because I had real deliverance, like, in an instant. I never wanted to mess with that crap again. For the most part, I think there might be something to people's like sun signs and stuff, but I don't even care that much about that. I make jokes sometimes about how I'm a Leo and I'm stubborn and, I'm loud and whatever, but who knows? I don't really care, is my point. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't base my identity off of that by any means. I used to, I don't anymore. But the point is that no one goes against God's intentions. Because if anything was outside of God's will, it wouldn't even exist. It wouldn't exist. It wouldn't. And, I was listening to Scott Hicko last night about how Christ died and how we do God a disservice when we think Christ is God, like Christ is the Father. Because where was God when Christ died? Like, if Christ was God, it's just ridiculous. But they don't think through these things. They don't sit down in a chair and actually think through what they supposedly think they believe. They never think it through, and then they just attack you like a rabid dog. You're an antichrist. You're gonna burn in eternal hell forever because you don't believe, the way I believe, but I don't even know what I believe. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I've just dealt with so many people like this, and it's like, it's comical at this point. It really is. It's like you're afraid of something, but you don't want to admit it, or you don't want to deal with it. So you're just gonna, like, it's like fight or flight. It's like trauma or something. I don't know. I mean, the Christian religion is very traumatic. No joke. I understand, but I'm just saying, like, think, McFly, think. That's all. So anyway, that's all I really had today. I just wanted to say, like, I was just been thinking about all that, and how even in the situations where I thought I was sinning the greatest and I did all these things, what came out of that was good, because I had to learn a lesson, and I wouldn't have learned that lesson if I hadn't gone, quote unquote, against God's will at that moment. But who caused me to ultimately go against God's, like, declared will was God himself, because I never went against God's intention, because his intention was always that I would do whatever so that I would learn that lesson, so that I would go through that situation and come out of it on the other side, or for whatever his cosmic purposes. Do you see what I'm saying? So you can't, living in fear that you're always, like, sinning and going against God's will is just fruitless. I mean, Paul says we shouldn't just go, should we sin that grace may abound? No. I mean, the thing is, like I said, I sin way less now since I'm under grace, that I fully know I'm under grace. Sin doesn't really tempt me to, like, I don't get tempted to just blatantly sin. I just don't. And this is why the law, when I was under the law and always, like, trying to keep the law and keep my own righteousness intact, and I sinned so much worse. I mean, I was so out of control. I had deep-seated rage, and honestly, I feel like my husband has a lot of that, because he doesn't know him, like, he doesn't understand that it's I don't have anything to offer God. I'm very clear on that. I know that. Like, it's all God. Whatever he's given to me, I maybe give him some back to him. But there's nothing that I created, or that, I mean, I might make a cake, but I'm saying, like, God gave me my hands. God gave me my thoughts. God gave me my, you know what I mean? Like, yes, I exercised my muscle that he gave me or whatever, and I learned certain things. I'm not saying you sit on the porch and you just, but when it comes to actually doing things in life, I'm not saying that. Now, salvation is that way, because it's like I said, you're a dead person and you're being rescued. You know, there's nothing you could do for that. That's a done deal. That was done. I mean, Christ died 2,000 years ago and he saved all mankind back then. It's just coming to a realization of the truth. But anyway, I'm just saying, like, everything is God. Everything is God willing and working all things to the counsel of his own will through his creation, including the devil, including the fallen angels, including the Nephilim, these weird creatures that exist somewhere. I don't want to know about them. I don't want, but I'm just saying, God's got it all in the bag, you know, and there's weird things there's definitely weird things going on. I don't know if you guys saw, there's like portals opening up and weird like spirals in the sky. I think we're so close, guys. Like, it's just, we live in like wackadoodle land, you know, it's crazy. But yeah, that's all I had today. I just want to come on here and do a quicker video and talk about God's intention versus his will, and how we can never ever we can never go against God's intention, because we wouldn't even exist. It wouldn't, it's not possible. So anyway, grace and peace, guys. I'll see you next time.